turn your back on me.
Is that a challenge?
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
White folks are nosy. They have specials. Nosy specials. Why does a bee make honey? You ain't a bee. Why do you give a fuck?
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
If he dies, he dies.
Welcome to Thought Crimes, everyone. This is your girl, Sincere.
Hey, yo, this is your man, P Solo Prince Solomon in the building. We're launching off this Halloween month with some incredible stories. We're going to be starting with DMX. Go ahead, Sin. Hit them bars about the dog, the cat, the rat, the frog, the fly, the pig, the tree.
How you going to see them if you living in the fog and the fog and the fog?
The hell is hot.
Yes, we're talking about DMX,
Right.
Damien,
Okay,
the
let's go
demon
ahead now.
that was a part of.
Okay, so Hell is Hot. He had an alter ego of many alter egos too with the likes of DMX. And I do, before we begin, I do feel like DMX doesn't get as much credit concerning this style of subgenre of rap. I mean, there's some other people too. I mean, people can go back as, you know, with Helter Skelter, and I could actually argue that, you know, the 7 Day Theory and Machiavelli album, along with Life After Death, kind of gets into that very dark subterranean horror territory.
Horrorcore was definitely done right by DMX, and like what you said, I agree. Pac had his own horrorcore with the Machiavelli album, and Life After Death as well with Biggie. There was a couple of other ones you could say in the 90s that did the damn thing as well. And then, of course, DMX carried the tradition not only within the 90s but into the early 2000s. Because usually horrorcore is a bit of a gimmick. I hated where Russell Simmons was going with it, where he was picking up artists that was just talking about disgusting crap and was trying to pretend that was horrorcore. No, sir, that is just disgusting. But going back to DMX with Damien, what I loved about Damien from DMX perspective, it was a psychological type of horror. You know, and that's something that I feel was underrated, because that's the angle that DMX went with it. It was a psychological horror core type of album, or thriller, you could say, where here's this energy, Damien. You don't know if it's the dark side of the psychology of DMX. You don't know if it's an external energy trying to influence DMX for the worse. Nonetheless, you do feel that creepy energy of this demented force that's trying to convince DMX to do all these heinous things that could eventually lead him to either being dead or imprisoned.
It's not so much who, it's what, you know, what happens and the things that the devil does. It's not so much a person, even though he acts through people. You know, you can't call one person the devil.
Joe Arpaio?
You know, you can't call any one person the devil. You can't do that, because no one person has enough power to be the devil, you know? And, you know, it's through all these hardships that I realized that, you know what? This is God's country because I met the devil here. Because if I hadn't met the devil here, I wouldn't realize I was strong enough to overcome the obstacles that the devil would place in my path.
Yeah, so like, give you an example, you know, to the point of what you're stating here. But, you know, going back, I do feel it's the theatrics of how he did it. Like you mentioned, you know, there's other individuals, even with Russell Simmons specifically. Those were his, I think one of them was his nephew, actually, you know, and the guy said, you know, Russell didn't really know how to market them because they delved into a lot saucier territories concerning horrorcore rap and gothcore rap and all these other things, these subgenres that, you know, people still mess with today on the back end, right? But I think what made DMX situation a lot more unique is that it was packaged in a way where it was palpable to folks, especially black folks, because sometimes, as far as they'll go, it's like, yo, Chucky, Jason's pushing it, Freddy's pushing it. I'm not going nowhere else with it, right?
Yeah, black people do get creeped out more when it comes to these things.
So they'll say, that's it. I'm not going any further. But even with that, to the point, yes, this thing could be a demonic entity. Of course, Damien, right? Playing off of some of the films from the 70s, by the way. But also, DMX at this point in time, he's going by Dark Man X. That's what the DMX is supposed to stand for. Originally, when he starts off with Born Loser.
The Born Loser, yeah, that used to be my MO when I couldn't get a soul to listen to my demo. Door shut in my face until I started jamming them.
It's like divine master of the unknown, divinity material of the unknown. He had all of these almost like this Dr. Sabi type energy going on, but he was just coming at it like about struggling and all this other stuff. But the further he goes into the industry, then you start to see these alter egos like Damien and things of that nature. And I know people will say, immediately it can only be likened to a demon in itself. But when you listen to not only what you saw with Hell is Hot, but listen, he's also breaking down the darkness of the human psychology, the greed, and that's one of the things that Damien did represent. It represented, a lot of the underhanded dealings that people will do out of selfishness, greed, or just simply predicated off of fear.
Well, to your point, when everybody all starts off, somewhere. When DMX first came out, he was basically influenced by one of the biggest icons in hip hop, and that's LL Cool J. It was giving you a radio type of energy, and this is so understated and underrated by LL, his legacy. He influenced a lot of people to be heroic because he was the first image-wise superhero in hip hop, right? You did have it with Run DMC, but they were like a group. He was the first solo act in hip hop that came off like a superhero. Like, I'm bad, my radio, don't do drugs, So that really influenced people in the 90s because people forget, the DMXs, the Tupacs, the Biggies, and all of them that everybody talks about. Again, the most iconic figures that started out their career or broke through in the 90s were major LL Cool J fans at one point. So you probably have a lot of demos where people was like sounding a bit like LL Cool J. And to your point, that's where DMX started off, but you could always tell he had that aggression and bite there. Another thing that came to mind, like, Damien is a demon, or a part of the dark side of DMX's own psychology. But one can also theorize it could also be a flip on those in the industries who are trying to give these contracts to people and telling them, oh yeah, go out and just sleep with women, go out and just do that, while they having them sign the contract. Sometimes they bring them to parties and stuff like that. So I also wonder, was it a bit of that as well? Damien also representing how the industry always have those type of vipers that will be out there trying to tell you, yeah, go ahead, smoke it. Yeah, go ahead, do that. Yeah, kind of becoming more careless because we've already heard about the monstrosities in the music industry when David Bowie's industry people was taking him out, getting high and all that so he could sign a bad contract. So I also wonder if that also comes into play with Damien as well.
Damien is Diddy.
Well, remember Diddy influenced LL to do that song Phenomenon that some people didn't like. What was that?
It's something like a phenomenon.
Yeah, something like when he had the shiny, I don't know what it was, like jumpsuit or something.
Yeah, he was
ovaries, shiny ovaries.
Yeah, ovaries, shiny overalls. Well,
Damn, they're gonna get me for that one.
Well, you never know with Diddy though, so it could, hey, it
the
is
other
what it
regional option.
yeah, right. But yeah, he had on the shiny Ronald McDonald gear. But listen, that's a possibility because what I got from Damien, this is something we definitely covered here on Thought Crimes and even would be more on the Dummies College. And I mean, if you really look at Damien, there's like some Lilith energy that's just untamed. It's just going crazy, going wild, and. One of the splits, the psychological splits that DMX demonstrates well is him trying to not only get in control of Damien, but not even being forceful. Let me take that back. He's actually trying to educate Damien, on stop being greedy. You remember that track? And, he's talking about some of the things that, Damien wants to do and all these other stuff. And then at some point, DMX and Damien realize they're both one of the same. It just depends on, what part of them are being provoked at the moment. But to your point, I do find it interesting. The more he steps towards Damien-like energy, X said this in some interviews, he was talking about the darkness of the energy and the darkness of the industry and how they wanted more of that from him.
Yeah, I think Damien influenced Guilty Conscious with Dr. Dre and Eminem. I think that people need to explore even more of the influence of that part of DMX catalog and how it influenced others moving forward. Again, that's just my personal opinion. Some people may say, the influence came from other sources as well. But when I heard and saw Guilty Conscious from Dr. Dre and Eminem, I thought of Damien.
Okay, so Eminem does have his own horrorcore style himself, to the point of what you're saying here with, Guilty Conscience. And we know he's donned the Jason mask as well. I will say this. On the track Go to Sleep, if I recall, that's the only collaboration directly with Eminem and DMX. I will say that era of Eminem show and, when DMX was, running around, I believe on his third or fourth album, somewhere between The Great Depression. I love that album too. The Great Depression, I think, is an underrated DMX album, but but I did like their chemistry with each other. They definitely surprisingly have really good chemistry with each other. But I do feel with DMX though, it's something about the way DMX was able to capture the darkness and he could transmute it to something light.
I know it was like the poet Poe. It was like poems and poetry. It was like it felt very natural, organic, and very poetic. To your point, not saying it's because Eminem has inks added into his, so sometimes there's a level of immaturity there, whereas you get the best of that part of him when he does like Cleaning Out My Closet. But DMX consistently gave you that without the inks part of it.
Yeah, like you said with Edgar Allan Poe, absolutely. And forevermore. You're right about that. I think though, like to the point of what we're stating here, is there was something that DMX was able to possess with a dark ambiance, and it appeared threatening at first to a lot of people, but it's almost like DMX can either be the protector or he can be the villain. He can be the abuser, And I think that was the point of like where he was exhibiting the light and darkness, which I would say counter to from the Cash Money clique, the other guys like Ja Rule and Jay-Z. They kind of stayed more in the light. Ja Rule was more of the like, I'm going to be the fun lover boy dynamic of it. But you saw with DMX, he flipped in either direction. He could, get on Cash Money talk like Jay-Z, or he could get on the fun lover boy thing, or be the romantic too, by the way, or the seducer too, because he wasn't just the darkness when it came to him, dealing with other men as far as fighting, challenging, and dominating, right, and persevering through obstacles and all this other stuff, or just sometimes he'd be a terror on his ops, as they say, right? But, if you listen to DMX, he also represented a lot of time a forbidden fruit of apple for certain women to, if they were going to bite into it or not. And he rapped about that too. So I always thought it was fascinating how he channeled darkness in all different directions, even like across genders, like what the darkness meant to a specific gender or a person of a said gender too. That's something I always kind of picked up from him.
DMX was very therapeutic. To your point, he was just so really therapeutic when he delved into the light and the dark. He was like the Punisher for us. He was like, or he could be like when you saw the Netflix or comic book version when Luke Cage goes into the underworld and becomes a part of it. DMX always had that type of energy, where it felt like, you may get robbed by him, but then he'll be like, you know what? Nah, I see you have a stroller. I'm not robbing somebody that has a kid. That's the type of.
You're like, thanks. All it took was a stroller.
Right. Thank you, sir.
It's not even my stroller. But, okay, right. Thanks.
So he definitely fell into that energy of being the anti-hero, but it came so authentic to him and to the public, where the way he presented himself, and he had the best of both worlds. He was stylistic but honest. That's very difficult. Sometimes people are very authentic and honest, but style-wise is not appealing to people. He was able to have the best of both worlds, where he was authentically him, and he had found his voice, and he was also stylistic, where he had his own charm to him and magnetism as well. He was really what you would say a renegade in that space, and very unique. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, they, DMX reminded them of Pac. I think DMX and Tupac had some similarities, but they was oceans of a difference as well. I think what people say that's in common about them is the fact that they don't apologize for being who they are. They were introspective artists, where sometimes they got too caught up in the high life and they would question, why did they say that to somebody? Like Tupac would say, well, why did I call another black man broke? Or DMX would be like, why did I say that about my friend? So they were introspective in that sense, and they were also real when it came to their art and their passion. They were very passionate MCs, very passionate artists. And I think that is where the correlation is with them, and how they both was able to just fluidly go into light and dark. They both went into light and dark effortlessly. Whereas sometimes you feel some people who try to go into the shadow or forcing it, or some people who are trying to lighten it up too much, and what's great about both of these guys is they could go into either direction and still be loved. One of the things I realized about Future is when Future is the most positive, people complain about him. But when he's toxic, that's when people are enjoying his music. And then there's certain people or artists where they're in the light, but then when they try to go dark with it, people they're just not feeling it. So I do agree with you. That's he's very special in that way, DMX.
And look, the thing with DMX and Tupac, outside of them being both bald-headed black men that sound like ministers at times, look, realistically, you need that energy. You need someone that's going to always acknowledge there's possibly another realm. I know people felt like, I usually hear the commentary that, okay, Tupac had a fascination with death. Well, one could argue, based on what occurred in his personal lifestyle, he pretty much understood that he may not live long because of how many times he kept running to these strange pre-orchestrated obstacles that was set up for him. Basically, Tupac was stepping over a lot of traps. If you read about what went on with him and some of the stories out there that become at this point hip-hop mythology. But I think there's another side of it where acknowledging the drive of mankind. I think I call it, like, when I look at, somebody like Tupac or even DMX, there's a greater acknowledgement of the deeper drive of mankind. It's a very conscious, it's not conscious like some Talib Kweli type stuff. Like, I'm talking about, there's a deep spiritual consciousness in these people's music where they're even able to acknowledge, like, where at this moment I'm the villain, like I'm bad, right? It's like when Tupac talked about white man's world, and you expect this is gonna be like a record about a black man talking about white man's world, but he says we're too hard on our sisters, right? Or some of the records where you hear Tupac, even with the Ayanna Jackson situation that ends up sending him to prison, that whole situation that went down. He said, I didn't do anything, but I am responsible for being in that situation and having that situation set up in a way where a woman could get harmed. Well, you'll see with DMX, there's a bit, he goes in a different direction. Because again, like you said, people like to, just say, oh, they the same, but not really. Because first of all, Tupac checked about here at 25, but DMX goes in a more almost, it's constant repentance with DMX. And I think people, when I hear people's, like, when I hear Tupac, you gotta remember Tupac was 25. So Tupac, he said he'll talk directly to his Lord. I'm knocking at heaven's door, right? But you also got to keep in mind he was 25. He also said only God can judge me. As DMX, moved past it, because they both were about the same age. It's just Tupac died a lot early. They actually, I believe, 1 year apart, if Tupac had lived longer. But DMX's energy was, I have sinned. I've done a lot more dark deeds. Like, if you listen to DMX, the darkest we got of Tupac was the Machiavelli album, when he was fed up with everything. But DMX had constantly, as he moved on forward past the age of 25, as we saw him get closer to his 40s, he always talked about repentance for the deep, dark things he's done. And there are, as he stated, there are unspoken dark things that he was always constantly seeking repentance for. And DMX also came at an angle where he said he's slipping, he's falling, he can't get up. There was always this struggle with repentance, backsliding, wanting to stay in the light, aspiring to light, making it to the light, falling out of the light, going into the darkness, not wanting to go to the darkness, craving and yearning to be in the darkness, embracing the darkness, wanting to get out of the darkness. So you notice with DMX, with him, it was always this push and pull and tug with him that I personally felt was, autobiographical of the human experience.
You know who DMX was, and that was beautifully broken down. He's Al Simmons. He is Spawn. DMX is Spawn of hip hop. We have our MF Doom, and we have our Spawn, and that's DMX. Because Spawn's character, we read throughout the comic book, is him living in the shadows, living in the darkness, and always trying to work out of sin, being tormented by his mistakes, him being used in certain situations to create chaos, and then those same people sabotaging him. And what you said about DMX always asking for forgiveness, always trying to come into the light. I think it was brilliantly broken down, and it made me think of Spawn. No, he is Spawn. That is who DMX is.
I like that. Yeah. Of course, X and Pac, they're like, two of my favorite artists in rap and hip hop of all time. I know the same thing for you. It's just that when people like layer their images on top of each other, I say, yeah, they both, speak to the other realms. They both acknowledge ancestors in their music. They always talk about the dead. They also talk about the inevitable of the mortality of the ending of life. But I think the difference is I think where we got that with Tupac, if those situations with Quad Studio, Ayanna Jackson, the Jimmy Henchman, the Diddy thing, all that stuff, if that 12th house chapter, if I want to use that saying, the 12th house chapter never occurred to a 25-year-old Tupac, I think we would have got more of where Shed So Many Tears Tupac was, where he was conscious of his darkness, and if he stayed more in that space, that's where him and DMX was closer with each other at in that regard. But the only I keep saying the only difference between him and X is that Tupac had that other thing that went on. He had that red wedding situation that took place with him that drove him to almost, it reminds me of like Venom and Carnage. And I felt like the Machiavelli album is a Carnage album. It's just chaos and carnage because he wasn't supposed to survive in that, whereas X is, I wasn't supposed to be here, but I'm still here with the grace of God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think of Pac as T'Challa and Killmonger all in one. He started off as T'Challa and ended up as Killmonger, but he always wanted to get back to T'Challa though. It wasn't pushed out of his psyche, but it was pushed into the back. Kind of like, I don't believe that people could just completely turn you into something else. I believe they can bring out something recessive in you and make it prominent. And I believe Killmonger was recessive in Pac. But when they did all that stuff to him, it brought out the Killmonger. He was on vengeance, burn it down. Like that scene where he said, I killed all these people just to get to you.
I took life from my own brothers and sisters right here on this continent. And all this death, just so I could kill you.
Who shot me, but your punks didn't finish. Now you're about to feel the wrath of a menace. Nigga, we hit 'em up. How we do it, keep it real. It's penitentiary steel. This ain't no freestyle battle. All you niggas getting killed.
And some people may say, well, how is he both? Because then Killmonger said that to T'Challa. He was saying that to T'Challa, but he was really saying that to T'Chaka, who was already dead, so he couldn't burn his ass up. But Tupac, to me, psychology was split into those two types of energy, whereas, as we just broke down, DMX was Spawn.
Yeah, he was, so, I mean, I think, to the point of the opening of this particular one is, he brought a different energy that allowed for people to express in rap music. And also keep in mind, you've seen people like rockers that said they were influenced by DMX as well. But he was able to bring that in about the expression of the different rays of light and darkness as well. And I just feel what it looked like towards the end of his life, especially on Drink Champs, it seemed he was very comfortable with accepting all that was and who he is in life, versus where he talked about struggling and being ashamed and all these other forms of darkness and some of the darker themes he had to face as a child growing up. It is interesting to see the last interview of DMX as it appeared. Again, I didn't know him, Sin didn't know him, but as it appeared, him sitting, at the table, it looked like, he was, he mastered the light and the dark for for who he was. And if I recall, the lady that was with him at the time of his death, I it slipped my mind right now of her name. It's not intentional, but from what I understood is that they said he seemed to be very whole of who he was at that point in time, because he dealt with drug addiction, he dealt with overcoming the violence, and and also when you listen to DMX too, it does make you think about the obstacles of faith. I know people, when they hear faith, people, there's a perfection there. Like it's going to be binding, it's going to be immediate, it's going to be permanent. It's undulating. Sometimes you're tired, you're fatigued. Sometimes you thought you lost it, but it's subconscious. You had accepted, and X talked about that in his music a lot of times. And his consciousness, at least as he rapped about mortality in his music, was about being at home with his maker in many regards, as long as he does the work that he's supposed to. And to the point that you brought up earlier about acknowledging, where your darkness is, about putting others down, or even when he used to talk about the industry, this is something that's going on right now with Diddy and everything else, and people are alluding to Jay-Z, but we can't forget what DMX was talking about. There's more to a song than money, cars, and hoes. He talked about you need to give people something to eat, something substance, something that, is going to speak to someone's soul. Where I do believe, as far as the comparison with Tupac and X, I think what people are meaning to say is that they are both poets before they are rappers or MCs, and I think a lot of times that kind of goes without saying in hip hop, because we don't focus as much on poetry in this state of hip hop like we used to, or at least when Sin and I were much, much younger, like as, in our 10 and 9 and 8 years old. But you remember, just like Tupac had, his book of poems that even he wrote for Lisa Left Eye Lopez or Jasmine Guy, or what he wrote about society and politics. And, he didn't need a beat, like he said. He said, I just want to get these poems out. The Rose That Grew from Concrete, which is an excellent collection of poetry from Tupac. But then there was DMX when he showed up to Def Poetry Jam, and he talked about writing poems without the beat. He used to always say, most of my songs are poems. I just happen to find the right beat to speak them to. So I think that's where people get it confused sometimes. But I think it's because they both were poets before they were rappers and MCs.
Tupac was addicted to love. He was a charmer in a different way. You could tell he was in love with the idea of love. And DMX was in love with the idea of pain, of hurt, of the grit. The passion they both have, both of them being a poet, all those things is why people group them together. The authenticity and the amazing artwork. But they definitely, to what we're breaking down here, is an ocean of a difference.
Yeah.
Pac was someone, he'll spit all that that Prince Charming game to women, DMX, he's not gonna come at it from that angle when, he's like, yo, what's up, shorty, all that type of stuff. It's a different type of thing. Even when we're talking about the archetypes that we're attaching to them, you could say Spawn and Killmonger have a thing in common where they're both not above revenge. Okay, vengeance is something that's on the table for both, but there's still differences even within that, and also talking about the other archetype of Pac, which is T'Challa, which is why this was difficult. This is, if you talk about T'Challa is about uplifting women. It's about being about community. It's about integrity, honor, morality, ethics, right? That is what T'Challa represents. Out of all the Panthers, he's one of the most honorable in the bloodline. When you talk about Killmonger, you're talking about betrayal, pain, vengeance, being disowned, being disregarded, disconnected from your ancestry, disconnected from your bloodline. And the very interesting thing about Pac, he experienced both of that. He experienced being taught and told about his bloodline of being a part of the Panthers. But he also didn't have his father in his life until later, which his father explained how that all took place. Being lied to the people he trusted, even having to deal with the lies from his mom as well, who's someone he really looked up to. So I really just feel like, T'Challa and Killmonger really is a great comparison to the psychology of Pac. And then, of course, we have Spawn with DMX. Also, any final words, Prince, for this Halloween episode?
Yeah, I'll say this too. The other thing, which I think you did a fantastic job with those breakdowns of those archetypes as well. Also, DMX did dive a lot further into wanting to be the best MC, as what we know structurally what an MC is when we think about, LL and Nas. And again, that's not to say Tupac wasn't, but I always felt when you hear DMX saying, "I'll battle anybody," he speaks like a traditional East Coast MC. I'm looking to outspit Jay-Z. I'm looking to outspit LL Cool J. Redman isn't better than me. Method Man ain't better than me. Even though, again, like I stated earlier, Tupac is from the East Coast, but again, I think just Tupac was growing in a different direction. That was just, clearly looking to transition hip hop altogether at some point in time in his, 25-year career, right? Or his 25 years on the earth, better yet, right? But what DMX was able to perfect, we won't see it duplicated. There have been people that have been tried to mimic some of that energy. I think as, hip hop continues to grow, I do believe DMX's mythology will continue to grow as well. But I definitely want to just kind of break that down, Sin. I always felt what I really liked about DMX and loved about his work is the imperfection. He talked about his darkness. He talked about, like, there's some records where he's like, look, I ain't shit. You know what I'm saying? There's records that he'll talk about those things and trying to regain or understanding that redemption is something that should be a part of a goal in life as well. I know we always say, people want to be successful or they want to be a millionaire or, I want to be the best that I can ever be. But one thing I did like about DMX's music that you find in all of his projects is he had an aspiration and he was inspired and he was looking to inspire others to roads of redemption. The road to redemption was, it felt like to me personally, that was his the top of the Mount Kilimanjaro for him. And I think sometimes when people break down DMX, I don't know, maybe I haven't heard it, Sin can tell me, but sometimes I don't hear them really dissect him. Yeah, I don't know, I guess in a more nuanced fashion, but I just always felt that's one thing you'll see in a lot of DMX's work is that the road to redemption for him and what he was showing for others was not only attainable, but he repeated over and over, even with all of his different prayers on his albums, he repeated over and over, this is what we should be looking to do. And the road to redemption, he said it in one of his songs. He said it on, and then there was X, the road to redemption, whether you like it or not, it will be through the karma you will need to deal with for all of the sins or a major sin that you need to atone for. And I think that's what I just think DMX was a lot more heavier than people give him credit for. I think a lot of this shit, there's a lot of dope esoteric shit in DMX's music, but that's just one thing I'll just say from my final end. I always admired about him placing repentance, penitence, and redemption, and looking to break curses, however they may be. And sometimes you just got to atone for your shit, and you have to deal with it and accept it.
People who are musical savants themselves, or were really close to them, I've seen them understand that. When like Jay-Z was on The Shop, and he brought up like, damn, he just saw him making the audience laugh and cry. So Jay-Z understood that. And Swizz Beatz, who's really, really close to DMX and the family, he understood that. So the people who were either really close to him, or the people who really know music, really know the true essence of hip hop, despite whatever personal situations they're going with them, with the legal system, or possible fall from grace that may happen, those people, did understand that about DMX.
Yeah, fantastic artist, able to not only take you from the light with the Whistle and Dixie party outside, but he damn sure can walk people directly into the darkness and not just stay there, but walk them through the darkness. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Damien, one half of DMX's moniker, is the greatest MC of all time.
We thank y'all. Subscribe. Happy Halloween. Trick or treat. October, the month of October. We have this little treat for y'all. Make sure y'all subscribe to our Patreon. You can also donate to our Cash App to make sure you continue to get this type of content. That's Think Tank 619. Think Tank 619. We love you all. Peace.
Make sure we have Be More to make everybody some vegetarian pumpkins.
See you in your nightmares, nigga. Ooh, you scared to die? Eyes bucking wide. Pop the police when I slide by. Seeing these demons in my sleep. Back door I creep. Kinda high, he bout to die. Demons wonder why. Trapped in this system, love, I won't survive here. Shit, inside the darkness, baby, I can thrive here. Hoping it's 9 to keep my ass alive, so I can read the sky for all the ones we lost. Can't get my mind off that one gun I tossed. Your power made me, so I take the loss. We'll get to bleed you if it's equal. This vision lethal. Blending with people in your nightmares, nigga. You mad you ain't my picture. I got you scared of another nigga. I shoot at you. It's the rules for you to follow through. What make you better wearing black and blue and shit? Now put the money in the bag, that's it. Grew up to witness some murder shit. Show no respect if it get you picked. Don't wanna kill before my family. I'll skate a bitch. Got niggas waiting in this life just to be rich. Nigga, my soul all fucked up. Took years to be this. No fears, no worries. Couple seconds, my third bit is hit. Them niggas let it be on some house shit. That monster live in you. It lived in King too. Dark ass niggas hoping every single word is all about you. Catching this evil shit ain't new. I'm marked for death, it's cool. Pull off, I'm laughing at the cop. That pussy bleeding in my rear view. Nightmares be fucked up and you can see it's true. Fuck with our water, bitch, that's murder too. What the fuck is niggas supposed to do? While people die, I gotta wait on you. Police be making sad on TV, but the kill's real. Pussy, money, weed, but the only thing gon' help me deal. Shit, they took my life and that's just how I feel. You niggas sleep, you better squeeze, cause the man will. Jealous niggas, now making a sound, I'm at your window, bitch, I ain't gon' miss you. Sit back and reminisce, who with this niggas ride and keep their mind on tricks. Shit real, I hope these whites know I ain't your average nigga. Life in the dark, I build. The white man kill, shit gets so surreal. That Twilight Zone, I mean it for real. Ya niggas kill to pay they mama bills. A repeat cycle, nigga money kills. This life I live got me fucked up, I'm popping pills. Open your legs, baby, help me heal. still feel. The race is sitting live on TV, but the kill's real. Sit back and watch the moonlight, like the only thing gon' help me heal. Shit.
And as for the television's so-called plan, Batman has no jurisdiction. He'll find him and make him squeal. I know the squealers when I see them.
You think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blinding.
Interesting. Where's the Illuminati button? Interesting. Interesting. Where's the Illuminati button? Interesting. Where's the Illuminati button? Interesting. Interesting. Where's the Illuminati button? Interesting. Interesting. Where's the Illuminati button? Interesting. Interesting. Where's the Illuminati button? Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Where's the Illuminati button? Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Where's the Illuminati button?
Hardly think of culture or the repercussions while busting on backstabbing vultures.
What good has my power done? All reality is being ripped to pieces.
To whom much is given, much will be required.